Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for joining me on another episode today. We've got another first-gen Honda CRV in here, and we're going to be doing a motor replacement on this one. Like I said, we're going to be replacing the motor. I'm not sure what happened to this motor. We bought this one with a bad motor. It has no compression, and I'm not quite sure why. So we actually have another motor from the CRV that we did a bunch of stupid stuff with that we bought that was wrecked. We've already put the transmission into another CRV, and now we're going to be putting the motor into this one. So it's just easier just to go ahead and swap it out, and really cheaper than trying to sit here and just keep throwing parts to the other one. So anyways, we're going to get back to swapping this one out. This information will be pretty much the same for 97 to 01 Honda CRVs. The 99 to 01 is a little bit different on the intake manifold, but other than that, they're very similar. So this is a B20B4, but the 99 to, well, this one's a 97, 98. The 99 to 01 have the B20Z2. So, but like I said, this information is pretty much the exact same. So if you have a automatic CRV from 9701, this is how I swap a motor. Stick around and hope you enjoy. Take off this exhaust here because I like to take off this B pipe of the exhaust. So it's 14 on this side, 12 on this side, and then our O2 sensor is right here. It's got a little clip right there on the back side, so you have to push that clip, pull it down, and then there's a clip on the top side right over there, and you can undo it. So like that. So this clip right here holds it to the bracket, and then the clip that's on that side actually holds the two clips together. And then we got the two 12s here, 3 14s up here. There's one right over there, and then there's one right here on the front. And that'll get this B pipe out of the way. And then also, I want to take off this splash guard. So we got a couple 10 right here, the little plastic screws. Sometimes it'll have like a little plastic screw or like that one in here, but we need to remove that one. You can see the little 10 one there. We need to take off all 4 of the bolts that are down here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. If it had one here, take that one out. And if it had one there, take that one out. And then you gotta take this one out right here on the passenger side. So I'm gonna take this, oh, and there's two 12s, one here. All right, and then there's one right there. So once we take off that's a little bit of stuff, we'll be able to take the splash guard down. I'm gonna take that B pipe out, and I'll catch back up with you in a second. It's really simple to take this out, and it just makes a world of difference. So just take that out and lay it out here to the side, and then see, like I was talking about, it just makes it easier to get to all these bolts, like the 10, that 17, that 10, that 10, obviously the 14, and then these two 12s, because all those got to come out. So I guess right now what I'm going to do is go ahead and take this off, this flex plate cover. So like I said, 17 and 3 10s, and then I'll go ahead and take this bracket out too while I'm at it. So we've got a 14 and 2 12s. All right, so now I have the flex plate cover off, and it gives us access to our torque converter bolts here. So these hold the flex plate to the torque converter. It's 8 of those. They're all 10 millimeters. So the way to get those out is you just put a 19 millimeter here on the crankshaft and turn it counterclockwise, and then you can get access to all those. So just get see, we have access to 2 here. So then we'll turn the motor counterclockwise until we have access to 2 more. And just keep repeating that process until you get all 8 of them out. And then once you get the last one out, you should be able to turn the torque converter by hand behind that flex plate. So I guess I'll go ahead and get that done. Also, I just want to say, if your motor has slung a rod or something, that rod may be jamming up the crankshaft, and basically you'll have to disassemble the whole bottom right here. Take the oil pan out and try to get that rod unjammed out of there before you'll be able to spin this to get all those bolts out. Unfortunately, it's just how it is, and it's a pain in the rear end. So this one is not has not slung a rod or anything, so we will be able to spin this one and get that out of here. So all right, so there's our 8 bolts. Put those over here with the rest of my bolts, and you can see See how that torque converter spins in there by hand? Just using my finger and spinning it. That's how you know you got all the bolts out. And also, since you saw where I put my bolts, you may want to be more organized. I mean, I've done this enough. I just put it all in one big pile and I kind of know where everything goes. So now, I just need to disconnect this bell housing bolt. It's a 17. There's another bell housing bolt right here. That's a 17. Right here on my fingertip. All right. Yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and take the T-bracket out too. So it's just these two 19 millimeters here. We'll need to take those out so that it disconnects it from the transmission, because there is a bolt that goes through it up here that connects it to the engine. So we'll go ahead and take these 19s out and that 17. Oh, and then also we're going to disconnect this half shaft from the back of the block. So it's a 3, there we go. That bolt, that's a 14, there's one there, and there's one pretty much right up under that. That's a 14 also. So we'll take those 3 out, and then we should be able to rock this half shaft back to where it'll give us the clearance that we need to be able to remove this engine, because we're going to be pulling this engine out of the top. All right, so we got those bolts out, so you can see where all 3 of those were. And we got the 3 bolts out from here too. So now that we got those bolts out of the bracket here, this one right here should be able to roll back. Oh, and our wires are getting in my way there. See how I got it rolled back there? And that gives it clearance so that you can take it out. I mean, you can pull the axle if you want, but I don't pull the axle. If this was 5-speed, I'd have to pull the whole swap, because the transmission has that input shaft that goes up into the clutch, and the clutch protrudes out further. But with the flex plate and the torque converter, it'll slide over enough, it'll clear it. So. All right, before I lower the car down, I want to take off these 2 lower AC compressor bolts here. There's 2 12 millimeters, and I'm also going to go ahead and take off these 2 14s that holds the bracket on, and then these 2 14s right here that holds the torque mount to the body. That way, I do take off this whole bracket. That way it's not catching here, you know, trying to pull it to the top. Obviously, I could just unbolt the whole thing here, but for me, it's just always easier to take off the whole bracket with those 14s. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, so up here on the top side, the first thing I'm going to do is, I've already done it. I did it before when I was trying to diagnose this thing, but I took the power steering pump loose, so just a 12 millimeter bolt that goes through this way, and a 12 millimeter bolt that goes in through this way down here. So I got the power steering pump loose, and then I pulled the reservoir up out of the bracket over here. And generally, I'd take the hose off here and then put the line back, just tuck it behind the windshield, and then this line here, the return line from the power steering pump, I kind of just lay up here and keep it out of the way. All right, then I need to take off, so I got the pump laid up over here, got the line off, but I need to take off these 2 tins right here that hold the throttle cable on, so that I can move this cable all the way, or the hose all the way back. So I'm gonna do that real quick. All right, so we got the throttle cable loose. I'll just tuck it back over in this hole. All right, then take this, and so you just put it up behind the hood, like so. And then we can take off the fuel return. It's just a spring style clamp. Just use a pair of pliers to take that off. Same thing for the brake booster hose. And then we'll take off this hose right here, which goes to the cruise control. It's just a little vacuum hose. We'll take those off real quick. All right, so now we gotta take off the engine harness over here. So it's just a little clip right here. All right, and we got the connector here and the one right back there. Let me get it right there. You can see those here. All right, so now we got to take off this intake tube, so it just slides off of the air box here, and up here it has a Phillips head on this clamp. I've already got it loose. So it's a Phillips head, and I think it's like a 5.5 millimeter let me look and see if I can find out what size it is. Yeah, so that's 5.5 millimeter. And then we could just pull this steel tube out of the intake here, and then we'll be able to move this hose out of the way. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and take the air box out. You can probably do this job without taking it out, but it's just two 10 millimeters here and here. All right, and then it just pulls up out of this. There's like a little rubber grommet down here. It helps to put like some penetrating oil or some WD-40 or something like that on that, just to, oop, damn, just to help it slide up off of there. Yeah, there we go. All right, that just gives it a little more room to work. All right, so I'm just gonna pull the engine harness off the motor the rest of the way and just leave the harness over here out of the way. Gotta take this fuel line off. So it's 17 millimeter here. It has a couple of crush washers on each side of that, so to make sure you don't lose those. And then we gotta take off like this evap hose. It's got a little spring style clamp here. It just goes over to this canister. Until we get that out of the way, and then we'll have to drain the coolant and then take these radiator hoses off and the heater hose, and there's another heater hose right there. So we'll take all those off after we drain the coolant and be back with you. All right, so just use a pair of pliers to take these spring clamps off the hoses. All right, and then there's one back here. Go. And we got one right here on the radiator hose and one right here on this upper radiator hose. I'm turning the camera off for that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know where I left off yesterday. I think we're draining the coolant, but today I got to finish pulling this motor out. Hopefully get the other one back in here today and get it running. So obviously some of this was already torn apart, such as like it doesn't have the spark plug wires on it. The valve cover is already loose, as you see, but you don't have to take any of that off to get this motor out. We would need to take off the rest of the belts down here. So the AC belt is controlled by this tensioner here. So it's like a 7 millimeter on the end, a 12 millimeter jam nut, and then there's a extended nut down here below this pulley right here. And that's a 12 millimeter. So you would need to loosen that, and then loosen off on this bolt here. And that's what allows the tension to come off that belt. And then I've got to take out the two 12 millimeter bolts that are up here up top. So one is right here and the other is right there. So I'll take both of those out and then the compressor will be free. But I think what I'm gonna do before that, but we need to take off these radiator hoses here. So the upper radiator hose, the heater core hose, you see I already got the clamps off of them. We drained the coolant yesterday. And then I got the coolant hose here, or the other heater core hose here, and the lower radiator hose here. So we'll get those off, and this evap hose here. So we'll get all that stuff off of here and finish taking the wiring harness off the motor, and should be pretty close to ready to come out. All right, so I went ahead and got the harness removed. I'm just gonna kind of tucked it down in here. I just removed it from the engine. It's still connected all to the transmission and everything. Then I went ahead and took the bolt out of the T-bracket here, the one that goes through the mount, and I took out the one here. They're both 17 millimeter, and they look like this and this. So I took those out, and now the T-bracket, can move it around, take it out of there. Yeah. So there's a T-bracket. Set it over here out of the way. All right. And now, really the only thing left is disconnecting this AC compressor. Like I said up here, it's got the two 12s right here, and once the compressor is loose and we take the two remaining top bolts out of the bracket that hold it to the block, they're both 14. And we'll be ready to remove the belt housing bolts and get the engine hoist on here and lift her out. So I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect this AC compressor and get this bracket out of here. All right, so I got the two bolts loose on the compressor here, so I wanna go ahead and take the little wire connector off just so that it's not hanging on the wire. You can see the compressor can hang down like that. Now if you want to, you can take like a zip tie or something and zip tie this up to the fan, just so it's not putting all the weight on that, but it should be fine. It has this bracket here that holds that up, and it's not really putting too much pressure on it. But like I said, just got to get these two 14 millimeters out. There's like one right here and one right there. I know it's kind of a black hole down here. Let's see. Maybe you can see there's one like right there at the tip of the light, and then there's one right over here, kind of tucked in behind the exhaust manifold. But get those two out, and that bracket will come down, and then you won't have basically holding on here. So I'll get that out real quick. All right, so there we have our AC bracket. So you can see these two are the top 14s, and then the bottom two 14s here, and these are where the compressor itself bolts onto this bracket. Cool thing about this bracket is if you have a B series swapped 92, 95 Civic, this bracket right here allows you to retain your factory AC. Let's see. I think what I want to do next is I do want to go ahead and take the crank pulley off. So we can take the alternator belt off, and to let the alternator belt off, basically you just, there's a 12 millimeter right here that holds the alternator. So you can, a lot of times just loosen that, and then the alternator, you can slide it towards the front of the car and it'll let the belt off. You can see the belt's already off of this one. If the belt doesn't want to come off easily, there is, let's see if I can get in here to it. Well, I'll just lift the car up and show you. All right, so if the alternator's not wanting to move, you can loosen this 14 millimeter bolt right here, or this 14 millimeter nut, and the alternator will go towards the front of the engine and allow you to get this alternator belt off it. Like I said, mine is already off. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this crank pulley off. It's a 19 millimeter, and what I use is, where's that? Right here. This Lyle weighted socket, along with my 1/2 inch Milwaukee impact. Now, the Lyle weighted socket is the ticket for this. If you're interested in getting one of these, there's a link in the description on where you can order this from Amazon. So it's like $30 something. But I'm telling you, if you do Hondas regularly, you want this. I also have that, you know, the old Honda crank pulley holder thing. I never use this piece of junk anymore. Does it work? Yes. Does it work effectively? No. Once you've used this magician, you'll never go back, I'm telling you. All right, just to show you how effective this is. Boom. If you've ever done a Honda crank pulley, you know that they don't come off that easy. So, just my little 2 cents on this socket. It's awesome. Once the crank pulley bolt is out, you should be able to slide the crank pulley off. And by taking the pulley off, it's going to give you a little more clearance. Make sure you don't lose your little keyway, or your little Woodruff key. This little guy. But taking that off is just going to give you there's the motor going back in this car. It just gives you more clearance from that frame rail and stuff to be able to slide the motor over to get it up out of here. So now we've got the crank pulley off. Now yours may look different because you may have the timing cover still on it. This one's been removed. But yeah, I think now we're ready to lower it back down and take those bell housing bolts out, and then we should be able to hook the hoist to it and pull it out of here. So let me let this thing down real quick, and hopefully we can get this motor out in just a second. Shouldn't be too long. All right, so let me go back up here. I'm gonna open this door. Maybe go a little more natural light. All right, so all that's really left holding this engine in is one bell housing bolt. Make sure y'all got a light for this. Can y'all see this? All right, one bell housing bolt, two bell housing bolts, and right there is the third bell housing bolt. That one's the most difficult and tricky to get to, but hopefully we'll be able to get it out pretty easy. And then just these bolts right here holding on to the mount. So we'll take off these three nuts there and those three bolts, and it'll be ready to come out, baby. Oh yeah. All right, so I got the 3 bell housing bolts out. I also put a floor jack under the transmission just to keep the transmission from sagging down. And now I need to get my engine hoist in here. It's right here. And I'm gonna hook it up to this engine before I take this off. Because right now it's just that, and it's basically just sitting on the dowel pins for the transmission. And that's the only thing really holding this motor up right now. So I guess we're gonna get the hoist in here and hook it up. So I've got my engine hoist in here, and the way I like to do these, I use a 14mm bolt. There's a spot right here on the back side of the head. At that 14mm bolt will bolt right in there. Alright. Alright, so I got that bolt threaded in there pretty good. It's not bottomed out or anything, but you can see how that bolt sticks out there. Now I use seat belts on my engine hoist. They work really good. They're adjustable. They're very strong. And yeah, they're easy to get. Just go to the junkyard, cut some out of an old car. Piece of cake. So the junkyard's used. All right, and then on this side over here, I just kind of go around that coolant neck. I know it's probably not the most efficient way to do it, but it's the way I do it. All right, and then on my hoist, let me see, I gotta get my airline over here because I actually have a pneumatic cylinder on mine. Mine uses air to power the hydraulics, and if you use a hoist a lot, I'm telling you, it's a lifesaver. If you're interested in one of these, you can check that also in the description. There's a link to the Amazon. But let me get my air hose over here and get it hooked up. So you just hook the air hose up, bam, up and away. So see, now I got my seat belts on here. All right, and they're holding that motor. So now I can go ahead and take out these 3 nuts, and then we could take this mount off. Just all you need is this metal piece off. You don't actually need to take the rubber mount off. Just these 3 nuts, take this little bracket off, and we should be about ready for liftoff. So let's go. Alrighty, now we got the mount off over there. So we should be able to lift it out of here now. Let's see. Oh yeah, so we can just bump it. Look at that. Check, make sure we got everything disconnected. You see the flex plate came off of the torque converter, left the torque converter in the transmission. Everything looks to be coming out just fine. Let me go around to the other side. Everything looks good. Tuck this fuel return back over here out of the way. But hey, we're coming out, baby. We're coming out, baby. And slide it over towards the passenger side a little bit. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Come on with it. My alternator was trying to catch my harness there. Up and away. Up and away. You see how much better this pneumatic cylinder is, man. It's awesome. Look at that, baby. Look at that. Honestly, the engine hoist is about the only thing that I use my air compressor for. Maybe that and airing up a tire here and there. And maybe use the air blower every once in a while. But for the most part, I don't use the air compressor anymore because the electric tools, they're strong, you know, just as the Milwaukee tools, they're just as strong as the pneumatic tools, and they're tons quieter, better on my ears. I don't like hearing the air compressor run. So I'm gonna let the air compressor turn off before I go back in the shop. So you can see it came out without taking out that axle shaft or any of that stuff. There's no transmission fluid leaking because the torque converter's still in there, the axle shaft's still in there, so we're all good on that. Saved all our fluids. So heck yeah, baby. Another thing I really like about the seat belts also is if you had a nice painted valve cover or something like that, the seat belts aren't going to scratch your valve cover like a chain would. And like I say, they're super sturdy. I've used probably these exact 2 seat belts on countless motors and transmissions and stuff, and they just keep holding up. Never had one break on me, and I've done a lot of dumb stuff with the seat belts out here, and just all kinds of dumb stuff. So yeah, there's my 2 cents on my hoist. And like I said, if you're interested in one of these pneumatic air over hydraulic cylinders, you can check them out on my the description. There's a link to the Amazon. Yeah, they're very efficient. I've had this cylinder here for probably, I don't know, going on 4 or 5 years, and it primarily sits outdoors too. I just leave it down over the cylinder, don't get rusted, you know. And I think they're about, I don't know, $100 or something. But if you're using it all the time, shoot, $100 well spent. So anyways, right now I've got to go to the car auction and see about buying some more junk. And then maybe this afternoon I can get this other motor plugged back in. So, yep, that's what I'm going to do. All right, so now I've about got the new motor prepared to put in, but I just want to show you an example of one thing I always look for before installing the new motor. So like they have 2 alignment dowels that aligns it with the transmission, make sure it's in the proper alignment. And you can see this one doesn't have the alignment dowels, right? Because they stayed in the transmission. Maybe you can see them. Yeah, right down there, how it protrudes out. And then on the back, how it protrudes out. So with this case, they stayed with the transmission and not on the engine. But on our other engine that we're installing, you can see it has the alignment dowels that stayed on the engine. So we've got to remove one set. Doesn't matter if we remove them from the transmission or if we remove them from this engine. Just one set has to be removed because you can't have 2 that just kind of butt heads and it won't install. So just get a, let me show you an easy way that I found to remove them without making them collapse. So you just need to get like one of the 17mm bell housing bolts. You can stick it in there, right? And then you take your pliers and grab the bushing and spin it, because if you don't put your that bolt in there, a lot of times these like to collapse and it makes them just that much more difficult to get out. Sometimes they're really easy to come out, and sometimes it takes a little wiggling to get it out. But that's what they look like once you get them out. So just make sure that, you know, they're not going to butt heads. So I'm going to remove this one on this side over here too, and we're ready to stick this back in. I've already got the wiring harness off of it, got the AC bracket off, the crank pulley off. I think the only thing left besides that is, I got to remove this heater core hose right here. So I'll knock this out and get it on the hoist and get it ready to install, and then we'll catch back up with you. All right, so now I have our replacement engine on the hoist. Now it'd probably be better to go ahead and wash it while it's off, but I'll just go ahead and install it and then clean the entire engine bay once we're done. So I'm just going to put it on time lapse while I install this, because installation is pretty much the reverse of removing it. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to comment below, and maybe I can answer those for you. All right, so I just got the engine pretty much reinstalled. All I gotta do is install some new belts, like the serpentine belts, but I don't have those yet. I gotta order them from Rock Auto. And I'm going to also order some new CV axles, because the CV axles in here, the boots are busted, and I don't have any here, so I'm just gonna order some new ones. This is a flip car, so you know, probably don't have to fix that stuff, but we'd like to. So we just put some fresh belts on there and some new CV axles, and just make it to where it's reliable for the next owner, and hopefully get repeat customers. We'll also do a full service on it, like as far as the oil change and all that good stuff too. Just got it filled up with coolant, and we got to charge a battery or something. Maybe we can jump it off or something, but it should be ready to start, but the battery's dead. So yeah, I guess we'll get back on it in a second once we get the battery charged. All right, so it started right up. I do have it hooked up to the Green Dragon. I was able to jump it off. It won't stay running if I take the cables off, because I don't have an alternator belt, AC belt, power steering belt, any of those yet, and the battery's crap, so it won't keep it running. So, but hey, it runs. Heck yeah. Hey, turn the heater on. Make sure it pulls down all the water. Heck yeah. In business now, baby. Woohoo! Awesome, 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 awesome. So happy to have another one done. Hey, you kill it. Kill it? Yeah. So happy to have another one done. We're about to go do a video with the HN Turbo Civic Si. It's 410 horsepower turbo. It's got a precision turbo on it. Been out here washing it and getting ready for the little video we're about to do. And yeah, be sure to check that out. That'll probably be, that video will probably actually be out before this one. So make sure you just hit the subscribe button, check out the channel. I've got a whole playlist dedicated to the first gen Honda CRV. Hopefully there's something on there that can help you out. Keep your first gen Honda CRV on the road. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you on another episode. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.